your friend Chuck Schumer. It's fair for me to call him your friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've known him a
Yes,
long time. Were you in the
quite a
house?
long time.
Were you in the house together?
No, he
He was
was
he was
in the
already a
Senate.
senator by the time you
That's
got
right.
there.
That's
Okay.
right.
How would you appraise how his political fortunes are going? A lot of people are being critical of him on the
Hmm.
left. Even some people on the right have not been so
Hmm.
critical. The talk that he won't run for re-election and the AOC may primary him. How would you just appraise how he's doing as the leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate and one of the leaders of the party nationally?
I have watched and served with leaders in both the House and the Senate, and I don't think people understand the different pressures that bear on them uniquely. Chuck Schumer has multiple constituencies. Number one, he has his constituents in New York, and New York is a very challenging electorate right now. Number two, he's got his constituency among Democratic senators. They choose the leader, and so he's got to make sure that he's serving them. Number three, he's got his constituency among Democratic donors, and he's got to be responsive to them. Number four, he's got constituency among candidates, people who are thinking about running for the Senate as Democrats, and people like John Ossoff, who has a very challenging race. So he's got to protect his incumbents. You put all those constituencies together, like being the Senate Democratic leader may be one of the worst jobs in America. But I do think he's handling it very well, I have to say. He's handling it well because he is keeping his people together. At a certain point, he knew from the get-go that some would break on the CR. So he kept them together for as long as possible. And I get the criticism that he should have kept them together longer. But what law is there that allows a Senate Democratic leader to hold members hostage, even when it begins to, their position begins to threaten their own interests? I think he did as good a job as possible under some very difficult and challenging circumstances.
So what would you attribute the negative things we're hearing, for instance, from the far left of the party?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of anxiety in the party right now, and it's obviously generated by the existential threat that they perceive Donald Trump to be, that I perceive Donald Trump to be. They would like to see more engagement. They would like, look, I'll give you a classic example. Somebody walked into the bookstore recently and said to me, what I don't like about the Democrats, I don't think that they're showing enough strength and opposition to Trump. I said, well, what would you like them to do? And the answer was they should have a hunger strike on the White House lawn.
Right.
Now, okay. But there is that level of we want something done. It's easy. I'm a Mets fan, man. I get it. Pete Alonso strikes out, I want action immediately. And that's not to liken this to a baseball game, but the stakes are so high with Democrats that I think that they would like to see greater energy, not realizing that there are all sorts of complications that impact that energy.
Let's talk about one of my favorite topics, because I like to own the space. 2028 in your party's presidential nomination.
Yeah.
Here's a resolved. Rahm Emanuel is a strong candidate for the Democratic nomination for president. Discuss.
Seconded and affirmed. And full disclosure, I'm working very closely with him. I talked to him twice yesterday, so I may not be the most objective person.
Okay.
Are you
open? Are you open? You two serve together and we're very like-minded about how to win and keep the majority. So I knew you'd be a fan, and his middle name is the same as your last name.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Are you supporting him, or are you just helping anybody who asks these days?
I am. Well, right now he's not running technically for president, so there's nobody to support.
But if Rahm runs, are you going to be for him?
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate the forthrightness, because most people I ask that question of about anybody says it's too soon. So good to know. So make the case. Why? Because I'm sure you confront what I do. I know Rahm pretty well too. And I can make the argument that he'll be a strong candidate. But then there are people you and I know who dismiss it out of hand.
Yeah.
So make the case why Rahm Emanuel would be a strong candidate, not just for the general election, and I'm sure you think he'd be a great president, but make the case of how he wins the nomination in a party that's moved far to his left in a lot of ways.
Two very simple propositions. First, he's talking about issues that resonate in battleground states. He's talking about the collapse of the American dream. He's talking about the fact that if you're under 35, your chances of owning a home are about 12%. Your parents, when they were under 35, the chances of them owning a home was over 50%. He's talking about the exorbitant costs that Americans are facing every day. He's talking about issues that resonate at kitchen tables where it matters in terms of an electoral path in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Arizona, in North Carolina, elsewhere. And secondly, and more Democrats need to be focused on those issues.
Yeah.
It's proven by the victories of Abigail Spanberger in Virginia and Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey. And secondly, look, I worked very closely with him. When he was the chair of DCCC, I was his chief recruiter. This guy just knows how to win.
Yeah.
This guy pulls wins out of a hat. And we Democrats who all agree that Donald Trump is an existential threat, we need somebody who just knows how to win on those issues. And he's it.
Do you confront skepticism as I do about this?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And what do the skeptics say?
Some of the arguments I find offensive, frankly, which is, can a Jewish guy win? Can a Jewish guy with the name Israel and his middle name win?
Yeah.
So I just think that's a disqualified argument, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Some say he's too far to the right. Others say that there are others who may play better on a presidential stage. Look, I'll just take somebody who's demonstrated the ability to win.
What about the one I probably hear the most, which is in his governorship as mayor of Chicago, he pissed off too many people on the left, and that his record there will not allow him to survive a nomination fight. What do you say about that?
Well, that's what nomination fights are for. And so he's going to talk about his record, how he lifted people out of poverty in Chicago, how he created more affordability and accessibility to better educations, how he figured out how to make the city run better. There's always going to be somebody who's going to disagree with him tactically, but I think the guy has a real record to speak to. And look, is he going to satisfy everybody on the far left? No, but aren't we learning that in order to win elections, you can't be too far out on the left unless you're a Mondami in New York City, which is a different electorate?
Yeah. How well do you know Gavin Newsom?
I don't know him at all, other than to say hello to him in a crowded room and for him to say hello back.
Okay. I'll give you a thing, and you tell me yes or no you think it's true about Gavin Newsom. Okay? Yeah, just yes or no.
Go ahead.
Successful governor.
Yes.
Phony.
No.
Clear frontrunner currently for your party's nomination.
Yes.
Vulnerable on his record in California in the nomination fight.
Don't know. I don't know those vulnerabilities because I haven't studied his record as much as you might have. Okay.
Clearly will be, if he does run, one of the top 3 fundraisers amongst Democratic candidates.
To be seen.
To be seen.
Assume so, but to be seen.
Yeah. Who would you put in the top tier currently?
Can I just say one thing on that?
Of course.
As you know, one of the horrible flaws in fundraising in elections is you can know 3 or 4 billionaires, and that puts you in the top 3 right now because the laws have been dismantled.
Yeah. Have you and Rahm talked about Ari running a super PAC?
We have not.
You probably should. No, my recommendation. Probably should.
I'll tell who said so.
Who would you make in the top tier of your party's nominees right now today? Not predicting, but who are the candidates you would say these are the most likely of our nominees?
Well, certainly Newsom, because he's been so visible. And look, he's dominated the field, and nobody has put themselves at that level yet. The question is it sustainable? If it is, then he's got a pretty good path. Rahm is focusing on visiting a variety of states. He's been meeting with members of Congress and others, but he's not at that visibility in terms of of the Newsom visibility on his campaign.
So would you put anybody in the first tier with Governor Newsom at this point?
Oh, right now, I think, by virtue of the fact that Newsom has just been dominating the narrative in social media every single day, I can't think of anybody but let me assure you and your viewers, it will be a pretty crowded field at the end of the day. There's lots of time. We got to get through the midterms. And by the way, the midterms will also define the presidential lineup among Democrats. Yeah. Let's see where that brings us, and that will help define how big the field is for president.
Yeah. Have you been asked to give advice to Mayor-elect Mamdani?
I have not, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah. If I know you've not been the biggest supporter of his candidacy. If he did call you and ask for advice, what would be the sort of the 3 things you'd tick off for him to be a successful mayor?
I wrote a piece. I have a column in the Hill, and I wrote my own advice to Mamdani because it's not like he would, race out to exit 41 on the Long Island Expressway from New York City to meet with me. And I said, look, focus on what's happening in the Midtown Tunnel and not the Middle East. Number 2, recognize that you can appeal to voters in Brooklyn, New York. Nationally, we need to appeal to voters in places like Brooklyn, Iowa. So just understand that your media market does not necessarily define the Democratic electorate around the country. And number 3, find a way to fuse your generational talents in voter turnout, in digital strategies, in the mechanics of street campaigning. Find a way to fuse that with the kind of messengers we need in more centrist places, and you can be the next leader of the Democratic Party, or one of the next leaders of the Democratic Party, and help us win nationally.
Yeah. You and I know people who are very insistent that he's an anti-Semite. And I think using that phrase should only be done with clear evidence. Do you consider him to be an anti-Semite?
I consider some of his statements to be anti-Semitic. I think when you, very honestly, when you condemn Israel for what has happened in Gaza, and you have the right to condemn Israel, but it's hard for me to find a condemnation of what Hamas did, a sustained condemnation of what Hamas did on October 7th. That creates a double standard. And those double standards are usually based on some antipathy that you may have. And I've urged him to speak with greater clarity.
I know Jews, and you probably do too, who you could say the same thing about. Would you say that they're anti-Semitic as well?
No, because here, I have a very simple litmus test. You have the right to criticize Israel for what is happening in Gaza. I'm deeply troubled by what is happening in Gaza. If you were silent, whether you're Jewish or not, on October 7th, but you have stood up and shouted out about Israel in the aftermath, you have a double standard.
But if you do that and you're a Jew, would you say that Jew is anti-Semitic?
If you were quiet, well, I look, I'm not sure I would define, it's a good gotcha. I'm not sure I would define, technically define anti-Semitism extending to Jews and non-Jews, but clearly you're operating based on a double standard. And that's why I didn't say Mamdani was anti-Semitic. I said his double standard reflects a form of anti-Semitism.
I understand, but I'm asking if a Jew, and it's not a hypothetical. I know Jews who have the same practice, condemned one and didn't condemn the other. So I'm asking if you would condemn them as making anti-Semitic, exhibiting anti-Semitic behavior as well.
So I want to make sure I understand your question. So somebody who is Jewish who has condemned Israel for Gaza but did not speak out on
which you're saying is an anti-Semitic pattern by Mamdani, would it also be an anti-Semitic pattern by a Jew who did the same thing?
There's again a double standard that is based on, in my view, on a political anti-Semitism.
Okay, who's your favorite member of the Trump cabinet and why?
Wow. That's a very good question.
When people say that 20 minutes into the interview, I say, I guess the other questions were no good.
I think, right. Look, I have to say, there's a distinction between Trump 1 and 2.0. Trump 1, I could have answered that question in a second. I would have said Mattis. I would have said Kelly. I would have said Cohen. I would have said any number of people. He realized going into the second term that he made a mistake in the first go around. The mistake wasn't that he went too far. It was that he didn't go far enough, and that he was restrained by responsible institutional people. And so now he has assembled a cabinet of enablers, people who won't question his worst impulses, people who won't restrain him, which is why I have a hard time telling you
Yeah.
Which of the cabinet members
I'll offer you.
I support.
I'll offer you
Give me
two.
help. Yeah.
I won't offer you Long Island's Lee Zeldin because I bet you'd say no. What about Scott Bessent or Marco Rubio? Do you think both those are enablers who aren't doing a good job?
I think. I mean, again, the bar may not be that high. I think Bessent, Rubio, are more willing to try a responsible approach, but at the end of the day, they haven't demonstrated a willingness to do what Kelly or Mattis or others did in the first term, which is just to say, no, you cannot do this.
Yeah. How are you using AI in your life?
I try not to. I try and avoid it. I'm so concerned about it. Just read a great book by a colleague of mine. It's Nelson DeMille's son, Alex, wrote a great book called The Tin Men about an AI autonomous weapons system that tries to take over a military base, and it scared the living daylights out of me. I just try and avoid it. I'm so concerned about where super AI goes, not like the stuff that we're dealing with now, but where super intelligence takes us.
But just to respectfully ask you to probe on this, you're worried about it, and I get that. But wouldn't you be better equipped to think about it as a public policy issue if you were using it yourself to understand its dimensions?
Well, I do think about it as a public policy.
Right. No, but you're saying you don't use it in your own life. So doesn't that leave you on the short end of understanding its capabilities, its possibilities, its dangers?
It's a fair argument. I get my information. I actually read fairly deeply on AI, talk to people in the field. And full disclosure, I'm a member of a board of a not-for-profit, unpaid, that's trying to deal with some AI issues. And so, those filters are on me. But it is a fair argument that maybe I should subject myself to it. Well, actually, I am subjected to it. You can't avoid being subjected to it, right? Whether you like it or not, know it or not.
Ask yourself right now, are you being lied to? Wall Street insists the only way to have enough money to retire is to put your whole life savings into a 401k or an IRA and then roll the dice with it into the Wall Street casino. But if that were true, why do studies show the average American following that advice will outlive their savings by a staggering 10 years? And even the man who invented the 401k says it's a monster that should be destroyed. It's time to get the truth and discover a better way to grow and protect your money. Bank on Yourself is the proven retirement plan alternative banks and Wall Street desperately hope you never hear about. It gives you guaranteed predictable growth in retirement income, tax-free retirement income, built-in inflation protection, and much deserved and needed peace of mind. You can get a free report that reveals to you how you can bank on yourself and enjoy tax-free retirement income, guaranteed growth, and control your own money. Just go to bankonyourself.com/Mark to get your free report. Again, that's bankonyourself.com/Mark. One last time, bankonyourself.com/Mark.